Welcome back to the Card Pool. I'm your host, Stu.
And I'm Kyle.
And today we are finishing up our Hidden Gem segment from the set of Torment.
Indeed, this is part 2 of our Hidden Gems segment. We're looking at numbers 5 through 1, the tippy top of the Hidden Gems for this set. And yeah, this is the cards that, again, we are picking from outside the money cards of the set, which we'll be talking about in our next video.
Yep, those are the ones that are the true money that most players have probably seen or at least heard of at some point in the game. These are the ones that still remain unseen.
Yeah, but we're going to shed some light on them. So do you want to get us started here, Stu, with your number 5?
Number 5 here, we're looking at a white card called Floating Shield. Now this is a 3-drop that is 2 generic and a white for an enchantment aura. It says enchant creature, but that's because it's in old wordings, but it is an aura is pretty much what it's saying. As this card enters play, choose a color. The enchanted creature has protection from the chosen color. This effect doesn't remove Floating Shield, which is kind of important. If you say white, this will keep it on there. In addition, you can go ahead and sacrifice this aura, and target creature gains protection from the chosen color until end of turn. So this is really interesting and very useful for the fact protection is strong, and it's really strong in the game, hence why we don't really see it too much. But being able to make this useful in 2 scenarios is really, really powerful. Not only can this creature go ahead and attack unscathed, hopefully, or block unscathed, but it also makes it so that you can lose this if you have to really save another creature, and it can work on your opponent, it can work for you, it can work for your commander, it can work for any other scenario, and this doesn't cost any mana to go ahead and use this effect.
Yeah, this is one of those cards that when I didn't really know it existed, so when you were going to talk about it, I was like, oh wow, that's a really cool card. I didn't even know I had. And then relatively,
you never like this. I'll relish this.
And then relatively recently, I was looking through my box of cards, building another deck, and I came across one of these. I was like, wow, I do have one of these, and I never even knew. Didn't even think about it. But yeah, this is actually a really cool aura.
I'm glad I can be your muse, Kyle.
See, there you go. It happens sometimes. But yeah, so this is one of those like 3 mana for protection from a color. Not too bad, but yes, like you said, the biggest thing here is if you need to save something else or use this on something else that is not the enchanted creature, you can do it. I mean, you do have to get rid of the card, but still, really, really useful in a pinch.
Actually, real fast, so for those who don't understand protection fully, we did a very lame explanation of it. So what protection does on a creature is it makes it so it's fully protected from this color. So for example, we'll say red. So that means this creature can't have any damage dealt to it from a red source, being a creature, an enchantment, spell, or an instant. It also can't be targeted by those spells. So, for example, you couldn't have a Blasphemous Act do any damage to it. You also couldn't Chaos Warp this creature. Now, again, the aura is fully susceptible for being hit, but this also with creatures, they can't block you. You can declare an attack and any red creature cannot block it. However, any creature that's attacking you, no damage is dealt to this creature. And if they have trample, the excess damage would be dealt to the player, etc.
Like you were saying, protection is a very all-encompassing and powerful ability, which is why we only see it selectively these days. But yes, really cool card, honestly. Before we did this video, I didn't know that this existed, so there you go.
Thanks. So this is great in Voltron decks. You can go ahead and throw on your commander. You can go ahead and just pretty much use it for any kind of Enchantress deck. This is low costed enough to go ahead and throw in there. Draw a card for casting it, then protect some sort of mana creature, mana dork that's going ahead and going big, or something that's just going to go ahead and swing in for game. Put this on a Blightsteel. Put this on a little guy who's just going to go ahead and hit. Put it on a Master of Cruelties. Like,
exactly.
This
so
is
many possibilities.
So possible for like just being very overwhelming for an opponent to try to deal with, and then they can't.
Yes, and any one of these like modern day enchantment decks that give you like insane value, this is actually one of those old cards where I'm like, yeah, I might actually consider running this.
Yeah, definitely. This is a good tech card that not a lot of people are going to see coming. But like, I mean, there are other protection Rs out there, so it might just be you have to choose which ones you want.
Flickering Ward being one of my personal favorites. What a great card. But anyway, let's move on to our next card here.
Your next card here. Don't you bring me into this.
All right, well, number 5 for me, and I kind of cheat on these sometimes, but I'm going to be talking about the Tainted Lands from this set. So I used one as an example here, Tainted Field. There's a full cycle. That's not a great
title to give.
They really aren't, but there's a full cycle of 5 of these, one for each of the colors. Or actually, correction, there are 4 of these because black doesn't count because it wouldn't count itself. But there's one for, yeah, so I was just confused there, but there's one for each of the colors. So the lands have the ability to tap for 1 colorless, and they come into play untapped, notably, or it can tap. In this case, you can either add a white or a black, but you can only use that ability if you control a swamp. Not just a basic swamp, just any swamp will do. But so it's like you get the tri-lands count, or you know, some Urborg lands count. But yeah, but the point is, there are 4 of these, 1 for each color other than black, like I said. And they are dual lands that come into play untapped, but only if you play other swamps.
Yeah, that's very interesting because, well, typically there's another set of those where it's like if you have a white source, it can produce white. If you have a black source, you can produce black. It's they're almost like a reflecting pool of sorts.
A little bit.
But it's very interesting how this is so focused on black, which really makes you wonder, can I make a 5-color deck that's very black focused and use these lands? Yes.
I'm sure you probably could. And like I was saying, I think in our last video, Torment as a set was notable because it skewed heavily toward black in terms of what...
I should not have hit that. I apologize for that quick little thing. We have a new button to make it so that this pops up. This isn't planned. Very apologetic for that moment right there.
I thought the episode was ending early. I thought that this is like the equivalent of somebody coming out with the cane and going whoosh.
Yeah, honestly, if we had that for you, we'd been using it for years at this point.
Oh yeah, all right.
But I apologize. We're back. Torment's going black.
Yeah. So anyway, back in black. All right. We're good. We're done. All right. So for the Tainted Lands, yeah, so there's 1 for each color, like I was saying, other than black. And I always debate whether or not I should include these in decks that have black in them. I'm always like, do I play this in like a white and black deck, for example?
No,
I don't know.
I personally wouldn't. I would like these as a cool kind of way to do 5-color mana because it produces colorless, and I'm waiting for a really good colorless 5-color commander, RIP Golos.
Yeah, it would be nice, wouldn't it?
But like where you're actually going ahead and having the possibility of creating black and stuff like this. Like we see that with the filter lands, and there's other variants where it's like these produce 5 colors, etc., etc. But like a Tarnished Citadel, for example, or like the Pain lands. So it's like I kind of like the idea of this because you could go ahead and use like an Eldrazi, not Eldrazi Monument, the newer one where it's like colorless lands.
The Forsaken Monument.
Forsaken Monument. And it's like I'm waiting for like the right kind of deck style to go in with that. And like these kind of lands in 5-color, you can use them for like Reaper King, for example. You can boost out the colorless mana, or you can be specific with what you're producing.
And the thing is for me that like I've tried these out before, even in like a dual color deck. It's just those times where you draw this and just plains just feels horrible.
Yeah.
You know? So
it depends.
I can't do it. I can't do it.
I don't think the home's there yet, but we'll see. Let us know if you guys like them at home, or if they're in any decks. Just let us know.
Yeah,
We'd like to see what it goes for. But moving to my number 4, we're going to be talking about another white card here, keeping it away from black, Kyle. It is called Spirit Flare. Now this is a 4-drop instant for 3 generic and a white. And it reads, tap target untapped creature you control. If you do, it deals damage equal to its power to target attacking or blocking creature an opponent controls. In addition, it has flashback. If you can't tell, I'm liking flashback in this set. It has, for 2 mana, 1 generic and a white, and you pay 3 life, you can go ahead and have this effect happen again. So, what's so fab about this? Is it just because of the flashback? And I say, no. The reason why is this is the closest white's getting to the fight mechanic. And
that's not untrue. Yeah.
See, he didn't even think about it. So you can tell that's an authentic Kyle think face. Now, but the only thing is, it's very white in what it does because it is timed based off of the attacking and blocking creature. But this is super powerful because, well, like I said, it's the fight mechanic.
Yeah, and it's not really all that needed, I think, because white has way better removal than like something like green does most of the time.
Sure.
But still, I do really like the fact that you can use this twice with the flashback, and the fact that the flashback is only 2 mana is pretty good, actually. That's very cheap for this ability.
Yeah, usually these kind of little 1-drop effects, like we use these as little cantrip quickies. This is not usually what we'd want. But the fact that it has the flashback is kind of what saves it. It's not just dealing 3 damage or hurting and attacking your blocking creature, which you typically see in white. This can scale based off of whatever's going on in the game, and I love it.
Yeah, and it's probably in the same cycle as Deep Analysis because it has the exact same flashback cost, except for color. I didn't really think about that. But the point being, this is actually one of those flashback cards you don't actually want to hard cast. You want to discard it and then use that flashback just because it's cheaper half the time, you know?
Yeah, I agree. And again, it depends on all you have out on the field. Like, again, if you're creating little tokens, might not be the best thing. But if you have a big commander or you're creating, like, Angels would love this. Like, you have a big Angel or, like, Avacyn's out there. They're all indestructible anyway. Might as well go ahead and use this. Also, use them as a blocker. Then use this as a tap effect. You tap them down. Potentially 2 damage right there on the same block. So...
Not bad, not bad. And especially always cards that target like this and with the flashback, you know what I'm thinking. I'm always thinking of Feather the Redeemed with stuff like this.
I do not know what that is.
Because you could just, you target it, the card goes back to your hand rather than
your
favorite old deck of mine.
Boros,
yeah.
yes.
But so with stuff like that, you flash this back and you will actually get it back to your hand and not exile. So... there you go. Just another card for Feather.
All right, moving on to our number 4.
Yes, so for me, my number 4 is going to be Faceless Butcher. We're going back to black for this one.
Butcher.
So it is a 4-mana Nightmare Horror creature with a 2/3 body. When Faceless Butcher enters the battlefield, exile target creature other than Faceless Butcher. And when Faceless Butcher leaves the battlefield, return the exiled card to play under its owner's control.
All right, wait. Before we move the card, is that a sliver?
It's not. It's a horror.
It looks exactly how we would expect
it looks a little
sliver
bit
to
like
look
a sliver, perhaps. But it's supposed to be just like a, it's just like a nameless horror. But anyway, if that ability sounded familiar, you're right, it does, because it's Fiend Hunter, but it's black. So wrap your head around that one for a minute.
Wait, I was going to say, it's the champion effect. It's the...
Oh, sort of, in a way, yes. I mean, normally that's, removing your own creatures. This can remove someone else's creatures, too. But the reason I picked this is because it is really the only occurrence of the Fiend Hunter ability in the color black. So there are all kinds of potential uses that Fiend Hunter has that now black has the exact same access to.
There's got to be a black card with champion on it.
Oh, no, there is. There's a couple, but I mean, like I was saying, getting rid of other people's creatures,
stuff.
Potentially.
Yeah.
So like, if you're running into a problem, like black generally likes to destroy things. Sometimes, not super often, gets to exile things, but most of the time it likes to destroy things or sacrifice them. But if you're running into a problem with a creature that can't be dealt with using either of those methods, now you have targeted exile. It may only be temporary, but it's still targeted exile on a creature, which is actually pretty cool.
No, I agree. That is very cool that it's on a creature. And actually, if you target a commander with this, you do this. They then have to choose if it's going to the command zone or staying in exile. And based off of that decision, it could really hinder their plays. So I like that just for like all right, I'm going to pull your arm. Let's see what's going to happen. Are you going to either fight back or are you going to run? Like, it's going to be one of these other two things right here. So interesting. I almost wish it was a zombie.
Oh, I definitely wish it was a zombie.
But I do want to see, like, again, I'd like seeing more creature types get some spotlights here and there. And this is definitely a great card for that because this reads sorcery, instant or sorcery card.
Oh, yeah.
Or an enchantment even. So the fact that it's a creature in black, great for reanimability, great for being able to save your own stuff, like you're saying with the Fiend Hunter. Pretty much, yeah, this is Black's Fiend Hunter.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And you don't really see almost any of that, like, ever. So I just thought it was noteworthy. This is one of those cards where in a black deck, I'm almost always like, maybe I should play this, maybe not.
It's a cool toolbox. Yeah. It definitely is, and you aren't a toolbox player.
Not always, but this is one of those exceptions.
I'm more home improvement. But going on to my number 3, Cal, if you wouldn't mind.
Oh, go ahead.
Now, moving on to here, we are looking at another black card as well. It's going to be the first black card on my list, called Shade's Form. Now, this is a 3-drop aura, 1 generic, and double black. And it reads, enchanted creature has for 1 black mana. This creature gets 1/1 until the end of the turn. When enchanted creature is put into a graveyard, return that creature into play under your control. See, this is interesting because at first you're like, interesting version of fire breathing, but in black, and you're like, no big deal. The second part of this aura is really what makes this shine because you're kind of stealing their creature.
Yeah, well, that is very interesting, actually, and especially now that you mention it, yes, the fact that it is worded that way. So, I mean, the black fire breathing actually isn't that strange, because there have been a number of, like, shade creatures throughout Magic history that had that kind of black fire breathing ability. It's not really all that great. It's, like, okay, but whatever. Like you said, the main point is not that. It's that when you enchant the creature and it dies, it can come back. There are a couple different enchantments that do that, and most of them they're okay, I guess. But yeah, this one is worded exactly like that. So if the creature dies, it returns under your control no matter whose creature it was, which I don't know if that was intentional or not in terms of design, but just, and especially from like the art, you can kind of tell like, oh, you know, the evil wizard is, you know, turning somebody into an evil, horrible creature. Like, is it meant to be that way, or was it overlooked? I don't know.
It's interesting in that regard. And the cool thing is, like, where would you put this? Like, this wouldn't exactly be an Aura deck or an enchantment deck, I mean, or like a Voltron deck.
Yeah,
like, it could be. Like, this could be something like that.
Yeah.
You could Voltron and do a lot of big damage. But, like, it's kind of like Black's version of a mind control.
Yeah, it is a little bit.
And also with them having an easy way to go ahead and kill creatures with something like, I don't know, a Grave Pact or any other kill spell or Pestilence or anything else, the list goes on and on. This is very unique to what Black has if it's not stealing it directly from the grave with like a Reanimate, for example.
Yeah, this is one of those dumb things that like Blue can do where they steal your creature and then they blink it and it's theirs forever. This is basically the same kind of thing but in Black, which is a nice tool to have, I guess.
Yeah, but again, how many of those cards exist?
Like, yeah, not a lot.
I don't know off the top of my head. If you guys know, please let us know down in the comments, because I would like to get more of them. But I have nothing else to add to this card. It just blew my mind.
Pretty interesting for an aura, yeah.
For a common, very interesting for a common. This draft set must have been wild.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to your card. What color are we looking at?
Yes, well, we're going to Black once again for my card. Number 3 here is one of my favorite rares from the set, Dawn of the Dead.
That's a movie.
Yeah, I know. They kind of, I'm surprised they didn't sue somebody over this. But anyway, this is
they might have.
5 mana, so triple black. So obviously this is meant to go in a black heavy deck. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you can return target creature from your graveyard to play. That creature gains haste until the end of the turn, exile it at the end of the turn. So of course, as we all know today, Whip of Erebos is one of the stronger black cards out there. Just bringing any creature back, giving it haste, giving it lifelink, gets rid of it at the end of the turn, but you have to pay 4 mana to play the card and 4 mana to use that ability every time you want to. This gives that same thing to you for free.
Well, at the cost of life.
Every turn. But yes, the drawback in this case, obviously than it being more expensive than the Whip, and it doesn't give lifelink, is you do have to lose 1 life on every one of your turns. But in my opinion, small price to pay for free reanimation with haste every single turn.
And it has May, which is good. Also, like, if it didn't have the May caveat on there, meaning that you had to do it every turn, that would have maybe not been so good. It would have been powerful.
Maybe not.
But like it definitely would have screamed at me like, yikes. Because like Aura Shards, for example. But then we have the Sliver, who has Aura Shards, but you don't have the May on it, is a huge effect. So I do like it for that. Yeah, very interesting, honestly. I'm not... I would want this in another Enchantress deck, honestly. I'm on this train.
This is another one of those cards that when I'm building a deck with black, I always think about it, and I'm like, I have Whip of Erebos. Do I want this too? Maybe? I don't know.
It depends on what you're rocking. If you're running big fatties, yeah. Like, go ahead, hit big. Like, who wouldn't want an Eldrazi coming out all of a sudden? Like, all right, deal with this. I paid 1 life. I think that's fair for an Ulamog.
The fact that it's free reanimation
or not
after...
Ulamog, you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. But the fact that it is free reanimation after playing it the first time is what makes it almost comparable to something like Whip of Erebos, which is super good.
Yeah, the only thing is the timing on this. So this is going to have to sit out for a full turn and do nothing and not die before you can use it.
Right.
But I mean, you see that with a lot of other cards, like Shieldred is a very strong card that we see as a commander, but you have to wait for it to kind of come back to you for the reanimation effect. Sure, it has other effects that happen as stuff goes on, but for if you really wanted to get something from the grave from it, same kind of boat.
Yeah, that kind of thing always does bother me, but still, I think this is a really powerful option for anyone who's building some kind of reanimator deck.
Yeah, honestly, I've always wondered this, right? Like, what color has the strongest enchantments?
Well, I don't know. It is tough. Like there's so many. I mean, it's definitely not blue. Like blue enchant. Well,
that's the thing. Like every time
I just
you look at
lied
one,
because there's a Rhystic Study and Mystic Remora to think about. Ugh.
Yeah, exactly. Like we'll make that another video to talk about down the line. Like I think that could be a magic moment in the future.
I think so too. But let's go on to your number 2 here still.
All right, at my number 2, going back to good old green, we're looking at a card called Centaur Chieftain. Yeah, first time I got that right. Cool. All right, this is a creature that costs 4 mana, 3 generic, and a green for a centaur with a 3/3 body. It has haste, but in addition, it has threshold. And this threshold is what makes this card king. When this enters the battlefield, creatures you control get +1/1 and gain trample until the end of the turn. Why would I like this? Well, green is known for having these kind of overrun effects, hence overrun.
Yeah.
Where it's like you go ahead, you play something, you boost your creatures, they're going to be able to hit and deal damage because they're going to have trample or some other keyword effects thrown in there. Usually the champion of this is the one that gives infect damage, which is Triumph of the Hordes.
Yeah.
But this is more or less away from Triumph and like a cheaper Craterhoof Behemoth.
Yeah, it is. It is basically like a small version of Craterhoof Behemoth, and like this is probably the one card on your list overall that I'm like the closest to saying this isn't really that good, but I'm not gonna say it because
a worse
I don't want to like ruin my streak of agreeing with you. This is
feels
probably
hollow. This feels so hollow now.
It's probably my least favorite of your picks, but still not bad, right? I mean, small like a small budget sort of Craterhoof Behemoth in the right context is still really not all that bad. And Threshold, as we've already established, is so ridiculously easy to meet most of the time.
Yeah. Well, so again, this is like if you were to compare this to something like a Triumph of the Hordes, the infect is what makes that card so much more money. It is a one-time use. However, you can reuse this for every time it enters play.
That's right.
You
and it does
blink
have
this, you trigger this, you do any of that other stuff. Not only do they get +1/1, they can get a +2/2, +3/3.
Well, and the cool thing about this is so many other cards like this give your other creatures a boost, but then can't attack themselves. The fact that this has haste, especially in green where you don't actually see that all that often, is pretty notable too.
Yeah.
So I like that.
This ends up being a 4/4 with trample for 4.
Right. With haste, yeah.
And haste, like again, trample online, that passes and exceeds the vanilla test. That would make this out of an uncommon to a rare. Possibly if it had a better anthem effect, I could argue a mythic.
I don't know. I don't know about that. Definitely an uncommon though, for sure. So yeah, interesting card. I mean, it's not all that flashy or spicy or anything like that, but it's all right.
Well, see,
not
think
bad.
about this, right? Overrun costs 5 mana. This is 4. If you're using a blink deck like Rune, for example, right, where it gives you the ability to go ahead and constantly put bigger damage through, I think it's almost better to have versus Overrun. If we're going to compare,
Okay,
just
well,
those two.
yeah. I think that's fair, but yeah, no, the fact that it is a creature can be more repeatable like that is very interesting for sure.
It's an ETB, so
Yeah.
yeah. Budget Craterhoof, think about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, moving on to your number 2, Kyle. What do you got?
All right, so we're going back to black for this one. No
Jeez.
surprises there. Number 2 for me is Zombie Trailblazer. Now,
That's
this
a cool
is
name.
zombie creature, of course, and it has 3 mana, triple black this time. Again, leaning very heavily into the black here. It's a 2/2, and it has 2 abilities. You can tap an untapped zombie you control to either make target land a swamp until end of turn, or give target creature swamp walk until the end of the turn.
I wonder why you like this card.
Yeah, so again, obviously kind of combos with itself, right? I mean, it is a zombie, and not only can it make other people's lands swamps, but it can also give your creatures swamp walk, making them therefore unblockable as long as the defending player controls a swamp. In a zombie, I would argue its only place this probably really belongs is in a deck with a lot of zombies.
Yeah.
But still, in a zombie tribal deck, this is actually, I think, a very underrated piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, because you usually have a lot of different tokens out there, or zombie tokens, whether they're the decayed ones, or you have like the amass tokens, or any other thing that happens, just create zombie tokens. This is good, but also you have Urborg.
Right,
like,
that already exists.
Like that exists. Usually that's one of the top searches you're finding for in black if you need mana, if you need your colors online. Like, because again, you're going to use Tech Lands or your mono black because why wouldn't you, you know?
Yeah.
But like this, like you're saying, works on its own. It enables itself. And you can tap it the turn it enters. It doesn't. This isn't like a thing where summoning sickness is going to affect us. You can go ahead and make it so this guy, all right, I can't attack with it, but I'll make that a swamp, and I'll make that unblockable. This is literally Oprah. And you get Swamp Walk, and you get Swamp Walk, and you get... Well, you have Summoning Sickness. You can make that a land.
The idea that you can use your army of zombie tokens to then make something like the thing that created them, like a Grave Titan, for example, unblockable whenever you want it to.
So good.
It is really good. And like I said, I think this is such an underrated piece of a zombie tribal deck. I think way more people should use this than do.
Well, the thing is target creature gains Swamp Walk, right? So if you look at this, yeah, you do the tapping, but you can make it so anyone's land's a swamp, and you can make it so any creature gets Swamp Walk. So you could technically hold the politics in the game so that commanders can hit. And that's very powerful. This is strictly for on your creatures. I'd say zombie tribal, hands down.
Yeah.
But this could possibly work for changelings.
It could, yes, it could.
Depending on what you're doing with them, of course. But like... Yeah, I like the politicalness of this card. For 3 mana, sure, it's heavy black, but again, it's caring about swamps it's going to be.
Yeah.
I like this. This is great.
And I played, when I've played zombie tribal decks in the past, I've almost always played this card because I just think it is a very solid potential role player in the archetype.
Yeah, nothing wrong here. No gripes.
Wow, how about that?
But grapes, yes. All right, now moving on to my number 1, I am going to end on a blue card, which kills me, but it's such a good card. I didn't know it existed. I know Kyle didn't know this existed. At number 1, we're looking at Compulsion. Yes, this is every character in Always Sunny on Philadelphia. No, this is an enchantment that costs 2 mana, 1 generic, and a blue. And it reads 2 separate effects. So for the same cost, 1 generic and a blue, you can discard a card from your hand and draw a card. Or secondly, you can pay 1 generic and a blue to sacrifice this enchantment, and if you do, you draw a card. So what's so fab about this? You're like,
well, they needed a madness enabler in this set, and that's pretty much what this was.
No, but this is better, right? So like we've seen cards like in red, they had one come out where it's like, all right, you can make it so every land in your hand has cycling, right? Tectonic Reformation is the card. This literally gives all of the cards in your hand cycling. That blows my mind, right? Because like literally...
You can tell he's excited about this.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this. Like literally every card has cycling. So whatever card is dead, you can always pitch it and get a new one. So this is really good if you have a lot of mana or infinite mana, you want to try to mill out your deck. This is another way to win with that. Also, it works on itself. You sack this thing, you draw a card. Like, you don't usually see that like this. And
no.
It's so unique.
No, the fact that you can like use it for what you want to use it for, and then if it's kind of used up at that point, you can then just get rid of it for a free card. That is pretty nice. And this is something like I'm not gonna say it's not good because it is. I'm just gonna say like this is one of those things I always kind of debate whether I need it or not. And I'm like,
it depends on the
deck. Does it really matter? Like there are probably better things I could do with my mana, but still. It's very interesting.
So, all right, like if we're looking at something like the Lotus God, right? Locust.
Locust God, yeah, there you go.
Lotus God, now that'd be a cool card.
That would be
at some
interesting.
Point. I bet he makes mana.
Yeah.
The Locust God, where it's all about trying to draw cards. Sure, you're going to use wheels and some other cards for that, but sometimes you don't have one, or you have a land, and you're like, I can't use this land, or this instant or sorcery is not working, or this enchantment, yada yada. This makes it so it's always good, whatever you have, as some sort of thing to discard and draw. So graveyard decks will love this. If you just want a fresh hand, this loves it. And it's all so low costed for 2 mana. Like this is literally like a QVC. And for 2 mana, you can go ahead and get a new one. But if you still have 2 other mana left over, you can get rid of this, get another new one. Like it's like that's literally what this is. And it's a bloody uncommon.
Yeah, so if you wanna get rid of some cards, draw some new cards, you know, this is a pretty good addition to your deck.
The value on this is really, really great.
Yeah.
I would argue this is a rare. Let me know in the comments if you agree with me. I know I usually do this on Kyle, but I would like to see people think I'm in the right mindset or not.
Yeah,
for this.
no, I might not disagree with the fact that this is probably rare power level.
Yeah, wow, I'm very impressed on that one.
I think it might be.
All right, let's go on to the next card you got here with the creepiest image.
All right, yeah, well, this is my number 1, so the most powerful card in the set here, for me, at least, Mutilate. Yes, and that art, I really wish we could have just used a different version, because that just bothers me.
We could have, I just wouldn't let you.
It bothers me.
This is your fault for picking it.
Anyway, this is I'm going to try to get over that right now. This is a 4 mana sorcery. all creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn for each swamp you control.
And it's a double black in the cost
Yes,
as well.
and I mean, so obviously, if this was my like #1 pick for a hidden gem, I would say, you know, obviously this is my favorite card from the hidden gems from the set. But I'm going to take a step further and say this just is the best card of the set, hands down.
Okay.
Okay, well, I know, and we're going to get to more in the money cards,
Yeah.
but this is just, it's just so good. Like, I love this card. It's amazing.
For a card you love, you hate the art.
In any, yeah, well, there have been better arts.
There are better arts for this card, I will give that.
But for a mono black deck, which I would argue this is probably the only place that you should play this card, because obviously it only is good if you have a lot of swamps. But still, think about it. You're more than likely going to have, by the time you would want to play this, at least 3 or 4 swamps. So giving everything, at worst, -4/-4 for 4 mana, that's pretty much a board wipe by itself. And I would argue, in a lot of cases, this is even better than some of the well-known cards like Damnation, for example, that do the exact same thing for this, like, for the mana cost, rather. But destroying all creatures, obviously, that's, you know, a wider ability than giving stuff minus however much.
But it misses some things.
Exactly. Just destroying things doesn't get around everything. This does. There's almost no way to get around this card's ability.
Well, just have to have a bigger butt for it. But, like, again, if you're going to compare this to a card like Languish, for example, which is all creatures for 4 mana, just get -3/-3.
-4, actually. It is 4, but yeah, this is the scalable, this is the more scalable version of it. Sure, it could be worse, but like I said, you should not be playing this anywhere other than mono black, but when you do, it is a staple. It is a must-have. You should be running this, or I don't know what you're doing.
I will say also, this card has been reprinted a solid handful of times.
Oh, yeah.
And there's probably a really good reason for that. It's on the verge of being very strong, but not too strong that we shouldn't have it just running rampant in the game. And also for back in the day when this existed pre-Commander, like, this was probably very, very powerful in those formats.
And how does this stack up against something like Toxic Deluge, for example? I mean, Toxic Deluge is one of the most powerful board wipes in the game.
Yeah.
And the fact that this still, if you like, the longer the game goes, the more powerful this card is going to be. I think it's up there as well. I honestly do.
Would you rather a Cyclonic or a Toxic Deluge?
I don't know. That is a tough question. That is a very tough question.
Yeah, turn 5, you're sitting like that.
We're going to have to think about that another time.
But their blue's ripping at them.
Yeah.
This is great.
But yeah, this, like I said, mono black staple. And again, I think more people should be playing this card than do.
Yeah, the only problem is it's because of the swamps. But again, just because we run Urborg doesn't mean that's enough of a reason to do it. You are going to run enough basics. Black doesn't ramp like crazy, so you're not going to really get a whole bunch of basic swamps into play. And again, if you're going to run some tech lands, like I have a Hirobi Death Whale deck. I have a lot of tech lands, and my biggest issue is actually having colors online to be able to cast stuff. So depending on the deck, you might have a lot of swamps, and that could work. Like, sure, you can say Burnished Heart or Solemn Simulacrum and some other stuff, but again, you need to have those, and you're not usually going to waste a tutor on them. So this can miss timing, which is what you're saying.
It can, but most of the time, it's really just super good. And like I said, I know people are probably gonna, like, yell at me in the comments for saying this is the most powerful card of the set, but I honestly think that it is.
You don't have to even worry about that. I'm telling you that right now. But that is the end of our Hidden Gems segment right now. We are going to go into the powerful, most powerful cards of the set, Kyle, in the money card section, which will be our third part for this segment.
Indeed. So, until then, you can find all of our content and more at a bunch of different social media platforms. We are on Reddit. All of our cool deck lists are on Tapped Out. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter. And we're all at the handle TheCardPool. And in addition, Stu just recently found out that we're on Spotify.
Yeah, it's not Anchor, apparently.
No, we are available as a podcast on all of your favorite audio streaming, podcasting platforms. So Spotify, Apple, Google, whatever. Check us out there.
We're not as good at keeping up with it, so we apologize for that, but we will make sure new content's coming for it. So if you're looking for the hottest episode coming out on that,
probably stay here.
There's going to be a tumbleweed or two on that note. But until then, we still will digress. I'm Stu.
And I'm Kyle.
And we'll see you next time at the Card Pool. But then why do they call it Anchor?
Because... I don't know. It's just where they keep the podcasts. It's their
you
anchor, as it
anchor
were.
down there.
Yeah.
It makes sense to go to Anchor.
All right, then why'd you ask?
You didn't. No.